can take away everything that I ever worked for. I'ma keep on pushing till I earn more. I won't ever fall. Won't ever break. Won't ever crack. Won't ever lick. Won't ever stop. Won't ever let. Won't ever call it quits. Call it quits.
Hey guys, welcome back. We have a very special episode today. I'm here with my co-host Yuri.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back for another episode of BUCH Cast. Today we have a very, very special guest, somebody who's had a very big impact on my life personally, somebody who's been a mentor to me, who's helped me out a lot in business and personal things. He's had a lot of ups and downs, but I think he's a very successful man today. Definitely somebody I could take example from. Definitely someone who's taught me a lot in life. He owns one of the largest remodeling companies here in Central Ohio, and he also happens to be my uncle. His name is Alex Semchishin. Hello, Alex. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you. Very glad to be here at BUCH Group. See what you guys doing. It's very nice.
To get started, want to share some of your background, how you got to where you are. How old were you when you came to America?
I was 17 and I came to Binghamton, New York. Very small city, so I thought that America looks like Binghamton. Till I moved to California a year and a half later.
And then saw that there's I think a lot more out there, right?
And I moved to San Francisco. So from Binghamton to San Francisco, it was a big change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm like, I guess America doesn't look like Binghamton.
How long did you live in San Francisco?
I mean, I lived in Bay Area for like 6 years, but it wasn't exactly in San Francisco. It was, like 20 minutes away. So I lived in a few different cities. So I lived in Burlingame, and I lived in San Mateo, and then I lived in Hayward, and then I lived in Castro Valley.
Oh, nice.
So which is like within half an hour, 45 minutes from San Francisco.
When did you know that you were set out to be a businessman? When did you know that you like sales, you like business, you didn't want to work for somebody, but wanted to make your own path in life?
I mean, I probably knew that when I sold my first house and see how much money I can make in real estate. So at that point, I lost desire to work because I knew that if I'm just working, I'm trading time for money, and doesn't matter how much I make. But if I stop working, money stopped coming in. So, but it was not easy process because after that, I lost everything, and it was not that easy to work for yourself. So sometimes if you work for somebody else, it gives you security, and money is coming in, and you go do the job and you get paid. When you work for yourself, you have a lot of challenges that are not that easy.
What was your first job here in America?
In America, first job, I was working on factory, making cabinets, but it was like commercial cabinets. So I was working 63 hours a week, and I had to wake up very early morning, and probably 5 guys, we were driving to work. So every week we rotated. So I had to drive 1 week, and another week another guy was driving. I could sleep a little bit. So we started at 6 in the morning, and we finished 6:30 in the morning. So 12 hours every day, and we worked on Saturday a few hours. So it was, I didn't like it. The first thing when I came to do the job, it was a lot of Ukrainians working there. But at that time when I came in, I knew no English. So it wasn't Ukrainians because they were switched to another factory. So one American guy was showing me how to work, and he literally looks like 90 years old. So he had a beard, and he was like hilly-billy. So smoked a lot. So, and that time I was 17 years old, and I'm like, is this how my life gonna be in United States? So is this, am I still gonna work here when I'm gonna be old? And from the very first day, I thought, it's not like I don't want to work, but the very first day I thought, this is not the lifestyle I want to have. Because, you come into factory, it was especially winter, so you come in, it's still dark outside. and then it doesn't really have windows. You come out after work, it's dark, so I didn't even see a daylight except on Sunday and Saturday in the evening. I mean after work. So it's pretty much I came in was dark, I came out was dark, and when I was working it was just lights like this. So I mean I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah. How long did that go on for?
I mean I worked like probably 9 months. For me at that time, I was making, I mean, I consider good money because I think I was making like 7.25 an hour. But because overtimes, I mean, my paycheck was good, so I was able to pay money back for the car that I borrowed from my dad and my brother. So like in 2 months, I was able to pay off my car. So for me, and then I started saving money. So for me, it was really good money. But I mean, job, I didn't really like it. So it was very hard job.
What happened after those what's it called 9 months? What'd you do?
I mean, after 9 months, my brother Leo, he was working on at another factory in like 1 hour away from Binghamton. And later he decides to move to California because we had a lot of cousins. So when he moved, he called me almost every day. He said, "Hey, you gotta move to San Francisco. I mean, it's much different. You're gonna see what the United States looks like." And I usually wanted to be competitive to him. I mean, I always wanted to be, maybe better than him because he is older, and I wanted to look up to him. So I really wanted to move. But I mean, I still was working, and I said, I mean, will I have a job or not? So my cousin owned a painting company there, so he called me and said, yeah, if you come over, I'll give you a job. I can pay you $10 an hour. And I thought, oh, 10 is better than 7, So, and then when Leo came back, so my parents let me go. We took my car. We packed everything. It took us 43 hours to get from Binghamton to San Francisco. I remember I was so excited driving. So we drove almost non-stop because I was sleeping, he was driving, or Leo was driving. I was driving, he was sleeping. So we got to San Francisco. It was for me like, wow, this is nice. Ocean is blue, nice sunshine, all that. But few days first we didn't really had work. And then when we started to look, I mean, we stayed at my aunt's house for a few days, and she said, hey, look, boys, you gotta look for apartment because, I mean, you cannot stay here very long. So we started to look for the place, but the prices were very expensive at that time because it was a shortage on rental, and real estate prices were going up a lot. So I remember we called like few places that even were available. So the rent was over $2,000 for the studio apartment.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I mean, how are we supposed to afford this? So it was not easy. I remember even like going to, they have store similar to Kroger. It's called Safeway. So we went to Safeway to get food because I'm like, we are independent. We gotta buy some food now. So I take a card and go in the store and see, wow, prices are so expensive. I cannot buy anything. It's so expensive. So I remember I found a big yogurt, like, maybe, 1 liter or whatever. It costed $1. So I'm like, oh, I can afford. So I put in the card, and I remember I pushed in the card with the yogurt. People like looking at me, why that guy has only yogurt, he has this big card. But it was tough. And then we found a place, we rented a room. So people, what they did, like who had big houses, they were renting a room and charging per room. So we were paying $500 per room, but it was upstairs 2 rooms. So we had to share a bathroom with somebody else. So we just literally had a small room, like maybe 13 by 13. $500. But for us, it was really good because
for you and Leo, right?
Yeah, for me and Leo. So we stayed there for I think like over 6 months. And then after that, one developer, he bought I think like 3 units, and he was gonna to tear it down and build like apartment complex. And he told us, if you want to rent it, I can rent one bedroom for you $900. But if you got to remodel for your money, because maybe in a year or year and a half, while I'm waiting for permits, you guys can stay there. But I'm not gonna fix anything. I'm not gonna do anything. So we're like, oh, 900, that's pretty cheap. So we remodeled. We stayed there. So for us, it was much big difference because we could invite, friends sometimes, and we felt like we have a lot of freedom because we're not staying at somebody's house. And then it was me, Leo, and two other guys. So we even saved money because I didn't have to pay $250 anymore, a little bit less.
So what did you do for the work the whole time?
Work, I was doing painting job. So I started to do painting, and like I said, $10 an hour. And then I liked it first. I was very fast, so he was raising my salary. And then when I started to paint apartments, I told him that why don't you pay me per unit? So we agreed that I will get $250 for whole 2 bedroom and 2 bathroom to paint fully. So which was a lot of work because you had to paint ceiling white, and then I even had to spray cabinets because cabinets were dark, like natural wood. So I had to prime it and paint it, and I had to paint ceiling and all woodwork and walls. So at first it was a lot of work, but then I found out the system how to paint it faster. So, and I was really fast. So for me, $250 was good money because later I was able to finish in a day. And sometimes if I stayed longer, I could paint maybe 7 units a week.
Oh, nice.
So I was, but the way I did, I was taking sleeping bag with me because I had to drive like 45 minutes. So instead of coming back all the time, I was just staying at apartment complexes. I had, when they were remodeled, like when people moved out, they were put in this universal key that you can open a unit, So I had a whole list, the units that I have to paint. And so when I finished the unit, I went back to the unit that, let's say, I painted last week, and it had already new carpet and painted. It didn't smell like paint because it was over a week, let's say. So I just put a sleeping bag, slept, but I had to wake up in the morning because management came like 7 o'clock. They were open, so I didn't want to get caught. But the way I figured that I can save a lot of time because 45 minutes going one way, 45 minutes another way, and gas and time.
The traffic there is insane.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, I can do more work and make more money.
So you started investing into real estate after painting?
Yeah, like I was painting for a few years, and then I decided to get married. So when I wanted to get married, I'm like, okay, I need to rent an apartment or buy a house, but I didn't have enough money to buy a house. So I found in Hayward, California, I think like $950 a unit, because prices at that time was not as expensive as first time when we came in. Plus, when we came in to California, it was San Mateo, which is like almost an island, so the prices are much higher. So I went in Hayward, which is not really good area. So I found this almost like studio for $900. So I painted everything. I didn't ask them permission, but I made it really nice. And we bought furniture after, I got married. I moved there. I stayed there for, I believe, like 6 months. And then I always had this idea to buy a house, but my income wasn't that much because I was working as self-employed. So on my taxes, I didn't claim that I'm making a lot of money. Plus, I spent money for wedding, honeymoon, all this. So I didn't really have that much savings. But I wanted to buy a house. I'm like, oh, if I buy a house, because I had this, everybody was saying that, you buy a house, it goes up in price, and everybody were betting on equity. So I'm like, oh, if I can get a house, I can make a lot of money.
What year was this?
That was like, I think 2001.
Okay. Yeah.
2001, beginning of 2002. So I saved some money. So then I started to look for the house. Like my cousin said, who owned business, okay, if you want to have a house, I can introduce you to this real estate agent. His name is Marat. He speaks, Russian if you don't really can, if you can communicate in English. So I went to see him, and I said that I want to get, I didn't know how it works, how to buy a house, anything, but he told me, you have to be pre-approved, this and that. And he was working with also Russian loan mortgage.
Officer.
Yeah, loan officer. So she told me that I'm pre-approved for like 330,000, even though it was hard to buy a house for that money because everything was, expensive, and I had to put like 10% down payment. So I had this goal, okay, that I want to get a house. I started to look at some houses, but most of them were like 350, 400. Like cheap homes. So finally, I find this 330,000, 900 square foot, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. So I'm like, oh, I can buy this house. I can maybe rent one room, and I can rent another room, like $500. Thinking, okay, I can get $500 like we paid. So I was thinking, okay, if I'm gonna get $1,000. Plus, I'm gonna pay the rest, and then I'm gonna remodel, and maybe I'm gonna, sell the house and make money. So then I asked my brother Leo. Said, "Hey, will you lend me some money for down payment?" So he lends me 10,000, and then my father-in-law gives me 10,000, or lends me 10,000 for down payment. So finally I came up for 10% down payment, and I do not know how. But I did close on the property. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, wow, I have a house. So I moved in, and I was working, and in the evening I was remodeling. So, but at that time I was working a lot, even though I got married. Because I remember before I got married, my average hours were like about 90 hours a week, sometimes 93 hours, and that's a week. That's not in 2 weeks, because I was sleeping at places, so pretty much I did just sleep and work and eat. That's it. So. And after I got married, I worked less, because, like, I remember one time I was driving, calculating my hours. I'm like, oh, I just worked 50 hours. It means that I lost 40 hours or whatever of my, pay time. But thinking, I'm married, I cannot work that much. So, but I came home and I was working on the house pretty much. So, and I did rent 2 rooms. So I don't remember how much they were paying me for each room, but I had some income from that, and I was remodeling. So then in a year, I think, okay, my house went up so much. Like, same thing, like now everybody buys house and it just, goes up. So in a year, I appraised my house, and looks like I have an equity line of $128,000 that I can pull from the house. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I can take equity line. I can pay back, to 10,000 and 10,000, and I still can invest the rest because it's like cash. So, I learned what exactly equity line is, that it has adjustable rate, goes up and down. So anyway, take the equity line, and then a lot of people were moving to Boise, Idaho, or Meridian, Idaho. They said, Idaho is next thing, that real estate gonna go up because everybody retiring there, this and that. So me and my wife, we go visit Idaho, and then we put an offer on 2 properties. Like, I find these 3 units. It was her name was Leah. She was a real estate agent. So we talked to her. She's like, "Oh yeah, let me show you. Everybody is investing right now." So we found 3 units, 235,000. So I found out that with 20% down, I can get a loan, even though I still have a mortgage on my house. So I buy 3 units. And then I find this old house with 5 acres.
3 single families?
Yeah, so it was one place, like 3 units. It's not 3
triplex,
triplex,
okay.
yeah. And it was actually pretty in pretty good condition. It was maybe like 5 years old. So 235,000, and another house was 180,000, but it was really old house, but it had 5 acres. So, and then we put an offer on that, but I had to put 25% down on that. So pretty much all my equity line was put as down payment. And
On
then,
both properties?
On both properties. And then I had a mortgage, so and I rented 3 units, and then I rented a house. So it did cover the mortgage, and I think I was like breaking even, something like that. after I was paying. So after a year later, I'm thinking, okay, now I live in the house 2 years, and I found out if I live 2 years, I don't have to pay
Capital gain.
capital gain taxes. So I'm like, well, good, I can, list the house. So I list the house, and I call the same real estate agent. So he comes in, he looks at it, this, he says, oh, you did pretty good job, this and that, and I'm like, oh, how much is my house worth? Because I think, how houses goes up, and he's like, oh, I think we can list it for maybe, 490 or,
Oh, wow, dang.
maybe 495, something. I'm like, oh, no, I want more. I heard that my house can be sold for 550. So are you kidding me? Never going to be able to sell. I said, but I want to try. What's going to happen? I'm trying to teach him. The guy has a lot of experience. Said,
Yeah.
I will
Same
not
with us
let-
and our clients sometimes.
yeah, I say, I don't, he said, I don't want to waste your time and my time. I'm paying for advertisement, flyers, all that. I don't just want to have my house sitting on the market because, you're never going to get 550. I'm like, no, I feel like I can get 550, He said, no, then, I'm not going to be able to list it. You can look for somebody else. So I found this company because I was researching how much commissions I can pay, all this. And the first guy, he wanted like 6% commissions. I think he said, okay, for you I can do 5. I'm like, no, I can pay 4%. He said, look, and I said, look, this company help you sell. They advertise like. They were advertising it like $4,995, and they list my house. So it's almost like 1% for me was. And so I called them. They came in. They said, yeah, we charge $5,000. We list, and then you can pay to the buyer's agent, whatever you want. I'm like, why do I have to pay to buyer's agent? They said, because if you don't, nobody gonna show your house. This and said, okay, I can pay them 2.5%. So I think total it costed me like 3.5%. Because they were charging me like 5 or 6,000, something like that. So and they said, you tell us a price, we list, but people will call you. You have to do your own showing, and then we'll do everything else for you. I'm like, okay. So I list 550, and then sometimes people call, want to see a house, and then later I do get an offer 555. And they say, okay, these people gonna do 100% financing. They want you to pay $10,000 for closing costs, so you're gonna net 545 plus you're gonna
Plus
pay
commissions,
closing costs, commissions, this and that, and then mortgage. So I still supposed to net, and then I had equity line. So even after equity line, I still was supposed to net like 100,000. And or maybe even more, I don't remember. But anyway, so everything was good, and then appraisal comes in, it appraised 495. So I'm like, I got disappointed. I'm like, oh, what should I do? So I called the guy, and he says, accept the offer because, people don't really have cash. Everybody doing 100% financing. So even if you do put it on market again, your chances to sell almost next to nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but that's 60,000 difference. So, for me, 60,000 is a lot of money. That's, and that's coming from my profit. It's not like that's coming from total house because after I pay everything, that's my profit. So no, that's, I gonna keep it for he said, we can keep it, but I don't think you're going to be able to sell it. So I said, okay, let's keep it on the market. Let's put back on the market and see what's happened. So maybe in about a week, like one real estate agent called me and said, oh, I want to show your house. Is that still available? I said, yes, but we had appraisal. It's appraised for $495. So if your clients don't have enough down payment, they're not going to be able to buy the house. So she said they want to do 100% financing. She said we were thinking to give you an offer $555 with $10,000 to closing cost. So pretty much the identical offer, same offer, yes. And she said, but I have a friend and I think she can appraise. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know something. So then, I said, okay, but in California, good thing that the buyer pays for appraisal. So I think,
here too, yeah.
Oh, here too. Okay. So I'm like, okay, as long as it doesn't cost me no money, you guys can try.
Take that chance. Yeah.
So pretty much it did appraise. Somebody else came in.
Appraised?
Yeah, so that she asked more questions like about plumbing and stuff. So and they appraised, and people bought a house. But I was surprised that they pretty much did, was like negative authorization loan. Do you know what that means or no? So pretty much they were putting 0% down, and then they had to pay minimum payment. So their loan, so let's say they got 550 loan, right? So next year their loan would be like 560 or 565, because let's say their payment would have to be, I mean, I don't know, but let's say 3,000 a month, right? And instead of paying 3,000, they would pay 2,000 a month, but that 1,000 would add to the loan. So that was one way of get people qualified, because if they were not able to afford the house with their smaller payments, they were paying pretty much almost same as rent, and everybody were betting on equity, that equity will go up, and they're like, okay, if house appreciates, like, I mean, in my situation, I mean, it's appreciated like over 200,000. So even if my loan would go up, I mean, compared to appreciation, it's still not that much. So the people were betting on that. They were betting on equity. And they're like, okay, I mean, my loan gonna be, let's say, in 3 years 600,000, but my house gonna be 800,000 or whatever. So they had this idea, and plus they had zero risk, because they didn't even have to put a deposit, because to rent a place you gotta put a deposit. Over here, I mean, I paid for their closing cost, and sometimes they were even able to take a cash out from those, 10,000. And maybe like sometimes for moving expenses or whatever. So anyway, and then so I was really happy that I could pay my equity line. So now I was able to make a little bit money on rent, and I'm like, wow, this is nice. In 2 years I made almost $200,000. I mean, it was a little bit less after I remodeled, but I was doing work myself, so it didn't cost me that much money, just material. So, and I'm like, I don't even have to pay income tax. I'm thinking, okay, I do painting. I make maybe 50,000 a year, maybe 60. And from that money, I have to pay tax. So over here, I pretty much barely did anything, only on the evenings. And I stayed at that property, and now I'm, making so much money. So at that time, I thought, okay, there is not really point to work, because even if I'm gonna make $50 an hour, I mean, that's still not that much money compared to what I can make in real estate. And then I'm thinking, okay, what about if I would have 10 houses? That's $2 million, thinking, okay, so now I got this idea to get as much as I can properties. Doesn't even matter, if I'm gonna pay minimum payments or not. And while I had 2 properties in Idaho, they also appreciated. So now I'm like, I not only made money in my own house, but in Idaho. So then I'm thinking, okay, I really want to do flips. That's exactly what I want to do, because but for flips I needed money, and I didn't really have enough, because I mean, even if I would be able to get a mortgage, I was be able to do like one house at the time. So then I get another house. So I pretty much rent an apartment for 6 months, and I buy a house, and I start remodeling. But I did, because at that time I had kids, so I was thinking it's hard to remodel and stay at the place. That's why I rented apartment for 6 months. So next house I got, it was in Castro Valley, and I think I paid like $565 for the house. And I remodeled really nice, and then thinking, okay, now I can put it for like 8 something, 800 something, thinking, because the real estate market goes up. So I hired the same company, help you sell, all this they list for me. But I mean, sometimes people come in, look at it, say, hey, I mean, your house is way overpriced. Where did you get this price? You're never going to be able to sell it. I'm like, oh, I will, you do not know. So I have this idea that I can, pull number out of the air and just sell it. So anyway, it was probably 4 months on the market, and nobody gives me an offer. And at that time, the market starts going down a little bit. Like, I mean, it was barely noticeable. It was almost like right now that people were saying market is not going down, it's like leveling out. But it was not like a lot of houses were on market longer already. So then one of the real estate agent come and say, why did you list it with Help You Sell company? She said, they are discounted brokers. You're not going to be able to sell with them. I'm doing better advertising. I said, yeah, but you want a lot of money. She said, no, I'll charge you only 1%. And then if you want to pay 2.5% to other broker. You're still gonna pay a little bit more with me than them, but I'm gonna do all this work, this and that.
Net you more money, right?
She said, but if I list, you have to drop the price because your house is overpriced. So I kind of, was thinking, okay, maybe it's a good idea. So then I ended up selling house for like 735,000. So I still made money, but not as much. And then I was thinking, okay, once we move to Idaho, in Idaho houses are cheaper. I can start buying houses and selling, and I can do flips. And then I had this idea that real estate agents, they making too much money. I was thinking they don't even do anything. And, to make 3% or sometimes 6%.
Super easy, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be a real estate agent. So I'm going to do flips, and I'm going to become a real estate agent. So we moved to Idaho. And then I buy another house for myself so I had 2 properties, and then I buy another house, and because I'm like, now I have money for down payment. So and I bought a house, I remodeled, I moved in, and I started 2 classes, and it was really hard for me to pass exam. Like a state, national, I think I passed it right away, but state, it took me like 6 times. So
Oh, wow.
I was thinking, wow, this is so hard. And every time I had to pay $60. So every time I went to pass exam, I'm like, hopefully, pass and then fail and fail. So I almost gave up, and I'm thinking, but I need to pass. If I want to make all this money, I need to pass exam. So finally, I passed exam. I was so happy. I'm like, finally, I can start making so much money. So, and then I had to choose brokerage. And then I realized that, okay, I have a license, and then what's next? I still have to look for, clients,
yeah.
all that. So at that time, I almost had no income because I had to invest. And, I started to invest. I bought signs and, everything, what you have to invest as being a real estate agent. And pretty much, I remember they were, giving us classes. They said, okay, we'll teach you how to be successful, all this, but you got to have laptop, and I was not really internet savvy. Remember, I bought my first laptop, so I came to the class. They said, okay, you have to, we're going to help you to create a website, because we had to pay like $35 for website, and but we had to find the name, and, they were helping us to like register domain name. So they said, okay, if you register domain name, that will help you to do website, and we're going to host for you. So every time you send listing, it's going to be like through your website. So okay, don't even know what website is, but it sounds good. So they said, okay, you got to go to like www.godaddy.com to create your domain name. And I had no idea what domain name is, So I remember I opened a laptop, and like everybody, it was like maybe 10 people, they, registered that, and okay, found W. I'm like, okay, what do I do with that W? So I was not coming. So she said, Alex, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I found W, but where do I type? And she thought that I'm like from another planet. So, but finally they, helped me to register website, I made business cards, all this. I'm thinking, okay, now I finally can, sell. But at that time, real estate market was going down, and meanwhile, I buy another 2 properties, thinking, it's already a little bit cheaper.
Are you still doing painting at this time or no?
No, I didn't
You
really
quit painting
did
already?
painting because I was remodeling my house, and then I bought 2 other properties that I was fixing up and flipping. So I was working pretty much for myself. But problem is that I didn't really have the money because I was taking equity line from one house and invest. So I was pretty much doing exactly the same thing that I did on my house, thinking, okay, now I have, and I ended up having like 6 properties. So 3 units was rented, and then another little house with the land was rented, and then it was like on one I was working, and I rented another house, and in one I was living. So, but problem is that I was putting money into remodel, and I haven't sold anything. So I was betting on equity. Okay, now I had this number, how much I can sell a house for. And in California, properties were going down big time, but in Idaho, it still was like, people said, oh no, it's never gonna go down because you do not know Boise, Idaho, like everybody moving here for retirement, it's still much cheaper than in California, so prices are not that expensive. It was like a lot of information, and every time time I went to real estate meetings, they were convincing me
That the market's not going to crash.
the market not gonna crash, that it's good time to invest, all that. And they even said, like, they said, don't even tell people that market going down, because a lot of customers were asking, is market going down? So they said, you're not supposed to say market goes down. You're supposed to say, yeah, market is leveling, because it was way too hot or way overpriced. Now it's just leveling. It's back to normal. It's not going down, So I thought, okay, if it's not going down. So I had maybe 12 listings. I remember, like, a lot of even investors who bought a house, they wanted me to list it and sell it. But problem is that it was overpriced, because everybody wanted to make money, and people didn't want to reduce the price because they bought it already expensive.
Yeah.
So I remember this house I listed, and then I said, we had to drop a price. So I was dropping the price. Then finally we got an offer, and the guy comes to closing, and he brings $12,000 to his check, because, like, on hot statement I seen that he's supposed to bring money. I'm like, do you know that? I sent him a hot statement, did all the numbers. He said, yeah, I know.
Most money on the house.
So I'm like, did you put down payment when you bought a house? He said, yeah, I put 20% down payment.
wow.
I'm like, then why do you want to sell a house and pay $12,000? I never seen anything like that. I said, usually when people sell a house, they expect check, but over here you have. He said, yeah, but I made a mistake, because he was from Sacramento, and he had really good job, like, in UPS, and I think he bought like 2 or 3 houses, and he said, at least one, if I sell, I'm gonna be able to pay the difference, because the rent was dropping down, and it didn't cover the mortgage anymore. So anyway, he sells this house.
Does that scare you a little bit? When
Because I'm like, if people pay, and I said, because a lot of people at that time stopped making payments. And I seen a lot of people, like, who bought especially expensive houses. Like, you go in, you see 3-4 expensive cars, like, $80,000 car, Mercedes, BMW, brand new, huge house, and you think, wow, this is millionaires, and then you talk to them, and then you realize that they are behind on their mortgage. The car is about to
over leveraged.
yeah, and they are like, oh, we are almost homeless. And I'm like, how are you homeless if you live this nice lifestyle? And they say, everything is on loans. We were betting on equity, but equity is not there. So I seen a lot of people lost everything, that I looked up to them. I thought they are really rich. And I even knew this builder who was building first, maybe his name was also Alex. He was building maybe 15 houses a year, but it was not as expensive homes, so he was able to build it very fast, like maybe in 3-4 months, sell it and make good money. But later he realized, he decided to build expensive homes, like $800,000-$900,000 homes. So he starts building 10 homes at the same time, and in order for him to get financing, he took some mortgage on, let's say, his aunt, some on his brother. They said, okay, I'll pay you some money if you take a mortgage. So anyway, when he started to build, market started to go down a little bit, and for a more expensive house, it takes about 9 months. So while he's building, the market goes down a little bit. So by the time he finished, he couldn't.
He's working on 10 houses, right?
He's working 10 houses in different, not in the same location, in different locations. So, and then later he didn't even pay to some contractors, because he said, look, guys, I'm out of money. I don't, as soon as I sell a house, I'm going to pay you. And then he lists the house, and he cannot sell it. He has to drop the price. So his payment, he told me that it was like $50,000 a month just to pay his mortgages, his loans. So every month he's going down, and then houses he couldn't even sell for what he paid to build, because at that time when he was building, contractors still were charging a lot of money, because everyone was busy. So kind of like right now that like, let's say If tile was $10 a square foot to put it down, they were charging that much. Later, they were charging maybe $1 a square foot because they had no work. But at that time, construction was very expensive. So materials was expensive, labor were expensive. So he pretty much built a house that it costed him a lot of money, and he couldn't sell it. So he lost everything. He even lost his boat, his house, but he told me that the most, why he was stressed because he made almost like enemies with his relatives because now they
Yeah,
had
'cause
bad,
the mortgages on their name, yeah.
they had bad credit on their name because of him. They said, "Hey, look, we trusted you." He said,
Yeah.
what can I do? So for me, it was, shocking. I kind of enjoyed being real estate agent.
How did it feel for you since you doubted, like, since you're like, oh, why am I gonna pay this guy 6%? How did it feel when you became an agent and you're like, hey, I want this listing for 6%? Did you do that?
I had some, but like when I was a beginning, I didn't really. Problem when I was a real estate agent, I was desperate, to make money. So if now I would be a real estate agent, I would do much different. But at that time, I was desperate, and it was not good. Like I remember somebody called me on listing. They said, "Oh, we like to see this house," and I said, "Oh, okay. Would you like to see other houses in the area?" They said, "Yeah, sure." So I had a nice car that I had, so I cleaned it usually car and put water for everybody. I'm like, "How many people gonna be?" They said 4. I said, "Okay." So I put water for everybody, and I do research about each listing, and I put them in order, to see, because if we, let's say, drive in the same city, I don't want to drive, this way and then this way and then over here. So I had to put which house we're going to see first, and I had to make a window of like 30 minutes for each showing, and I had to call and schedule appointment, and I had to print the flyers, like 4 flyers for each house for everybody. So I'm like thinking, okay, I think we had to pay for color flyers, and I'm like, okay, it's fine, I'll pay. I'm gonna be, gonna look like professional, this and that. So, and I remember giving them tour, and I'm like, what do you think? And I was afraid to, let's say, sign buyer representation agreement, because I'm thinking, okay, if I give them paper, they're gonna think, oh, why to sign something that they're not gonna wanna work with me.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, I showed them houses. They said, "Alex, you did, outstanding job. We never had a realtor to do such a good job. We're going to be in touch." And then they said they disappear. And most likely they called their agent, "Hey, can you write me an offer?" So I realized that I wasn't a real estate agent. I was like a tour guide for free, so paying for the gas, paying for, even took them to lunch. So anyway, I had one listing that it was very easy listing. Like one listing, I couldn't sell it. It was empty house. And I told, and I always wanted to think outside of the box, like what can I do to, to sell? So I learned this, like sometimes I was looking like rent to own or land contract, something like that. So I didn't even know what that means, but I started to do research, and I was thinking, okay, if I put a sign rent to own, maybe it's going to attract more people. And then I talked to a client, and I said, look, maybe we can try, maybe for 6 months people going to rent, because some people couldn't buy a house because they didn't sell their house. So they needed, and they wanted to move somewhere, and sell their house. So I did this trick, like I remember I had sign like rent to own. So some people called me and said, "Oh, what that exactly means?" And sometimes I didn't even know how to explain it. But anyway, some people once called me and said, "Hey, we want to see this house that you have rent to own." And I said, "Do you have a real estate agent?" They said, "No." I'm like, "Oh, should good thing I'm going to be, a dual agent." So I came in, I showed them house, and they said, "Oh, we just need 6 months, and then we're gonna, because we want to sell our house, and in 6 months we want to pay in full, but we need a place right now, so this is for us would be perfect." So I'm like, okay, great. And at that time we had these forms that we could fill it out by hand, or we had to go in the office to fill out on everything on the computer, like offer. So I learned how to fill up everything on the computer, but I told them, okay, let's go to the office to, write the offer. They said, oh, why don't you go to our house? Don't you have, paper copies with you? I said, I do, because I always was carrying with me just in case. They said, okay, then let's go because our house is closer. But at that time when they wanted to see a house, my wife went to church to choir. So I remember I told them, I can show you a house, but I have 2 kids in my car. Do you mind? They said, oh, no, we don't. So when they wanted me to write an offer, I said, but I have kids. They said, it's okay, our niece can, babysit your kids while you write offer. I'm like, okay. So I went and, my handwriting is really bad. So, and plus my spelling. So I was thinking if I would do it on the computer, at least it has a spell check. So it's gonna, check how I spell. But then I'm thinking, okay, now I have to write it by hand. It's, how I gonna do it? They're gonna make a lot of mistakes. So I take an offer and it starts from the name. So I'm like, so what is your name? And, she said, okay, Susan. And I said, how do you spell that? And she started to spell. I'm like, oh, here, can you, write your name? And she starts writing the name. I'm like, oh, you have really beautiful handwriting. And her husband is like, oh, yeah, she used to be a secretary or this. I said, do you mind filling up the offer? I'm going to tell you where to put everything. And she said, yeah, why not? So she was filling up the offer for me. Her niece was, babysitting kids. I'm like, wow, this is nice. This is the easiest transaction I ever had. And I'm dual agent, so. And then we did close. So, it was one easy transaction. But a lot of listings I had, I couldn't sell because, people didn't want to lower the price.
Man, well, Alex, we can talk all day, and we have a lot more to ask. We'll definitely have to have you back on. I think we'll have you back on twice if you're okay with it. One time, I know you have a very strong opinion about the real estate market, and you think currently it's not going the right way. So I think we'll have you on for a debate. And then we'll have to have you on again to continue your story. I think you got probably halfway through it, so I think we'll
quarter.
Okay, well then we'll have you on former episodes. But sorry to cut you short, but we all have stuff to do. So we'll good stories. We definitely have a lot more questions and a lot more to learn from you. But very very interesting life, very interesting stuff. So. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you so much for your time.
You can take away everything that I